Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Grodzinski. I am a marriage and family therapist in Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm going to talk with y'all today about orgasms. Um, and I don't know if y'all noticed or not that initially the name of this week's live was female orgasm, but I changed it to female pleasure, and I just want y'all to notice that right now because that is something that is going to be important. Let's see here. So this is something that is not a substitute for therapy, and this is something that is not a substitute for mental health services. This is a purely educational video to help women or people that want to make women have more orgasms or heightened state of arousal. Let's see here. So y'all will have to forgive me. I'm still kind of figuring out this Facebook Live stuff. Let's see. So I'm trying to figure out, well, that's okay. So one thing that I was asked today that I thought was really funny was, okay, what kind of wine or drink would pair best with this live educational video? And the option was rosé or red wine. And I thought, well, I mean, either one could work. It's like, it's about, you and what do you prefer? What do you like? For me, like rosé would best be paired with a pleasurable experience that you're looking for to be kind of light and fun and maybe even silly. And then red wine seems like it would be really great with a more like deep and sensual experience. So there's that there. Oh, hi, Julie. Hi, Jules. Hi, Kevin. Oh, I'm excited. Okay, so here we go. So orgasm, this is another one of those things that people don't often talk about. And what's interesting about the female orgasm is that the more education that someone has, right? So high school, bachelor's degree, master's, PhD, doctorate, different things like a professional law degree or other professional degrees. Like the more education you have, the more likely you are to orgasm. So, my thoughts there are, let's get some education out there for people so we can help get to a place where you can orgasm. Let's see. So I want to start off real quick and really go into what does it look like, if you're someone who's watching this and you've clicked on this and it's like, okay, what if you've asked yourself before, like, did I orgasm? Was that an orgasm? Is that what was that? If you've had that question about your own body or your partner has had that question about you, this is kind of for you. This is kind of to help out, figure out, okay, well, what is this female orgasm? What are we talking about here? What does that look like? What does it mean? So I'm going to start off with some of the things that you can experience. Like I said in the last video, what I'm doing here is I'm really looking for, I'm looking for making this not a clinical video. I want this to be like, here are some things that people experience and here are some common sense solutions to that. So some things that women experience are difficulty in attaining an orgasm, so hard time getting there, a delay or abstinence. Not abstinence. No, that's not what we're talking about here. A complete absence of orgasm. So one of the number one things here that we're looking for is there sufficient stimulation? And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Y'all, I just realized I didn't set my timer, so I'm going to have to do that real quick to make sure that I just don't keep talking about this for the next hour. So I'm setting that real quick. Here we go. So a lot of times women have issues getting to that place where they're feeling orgasmic or getting to a space where they can become orgasmic. It has a lot to do with having sufficient stimulation. And then another thing is some women don't have orgasms and like they don't care about it. You know, it's like not, they don't feel like it's a problem for them. They like sex, they feel it's pleasurable, and that's okay too. So some women have never had orgasms. Some women have them under certain circumstances. And sometimes women have other sexual issues going on where they find it hard to get to a place, a space where they can have that heightened pleasure. So that might be accompanied by low, sexual desire or arousal, and then any kind of pain, genital pain going on. Let's see. So a lot of times lack of orgasm is also associated with negative feelings about sex in general, and like negative feelings about ourself, like negative feelings about our bodies or our vagina and stuff like that. So I really want to make it clear real quick. This is an educational video, so I'm going to try to use medical terminology. Yes, I'm going to talk about the vagina. Yes, I'm going to talk about the clitoris. Yes, I'm going to talk about the vulva and labia. And, I'm letting you know that up front, because sometimes when I speak about this in front of groups, I get some looks. And it's like, yes, there are cute names for those things, those body parts, and yeah, those are great, but I want to make it really clear what we're talking about here. So let's see. Okay, those are some things that women commonly experience. And let's see what was next. Sorry, I have to make sure I follow my little list of things. So what does an orgasm look like for a woman? So typically men and women like report very similar experiences, and that's like a sensation that starts in your like genital area, and it's a very euphoric sensation that spreads through your body. There are typically some like pulses of muscle contractions, and that's a big part of it. So that's kind of what you're looking for as far as an orgasm. The big difference between men and women, and men have a little bit of this too, but for women, there's much more variance in what it means to have an orgasm. Like you could have a mind-blowing, amazing orgasm, or you could have kind of a lower level orgasm. So it varies for women. I think that's why a lot of women are like, I wasn't sure if I orgasmed. I'm not quite sure. But what we do know is that if you're having that question, you probably had a pretty pleasurable experience. And so that's a good thing. I'm going to go back to why I changed the name of this Facebook Live. The reason I changed the name is if you go into a sexual experience thinking or having the goal of, I'm going to orgasm, or I'm going to make my partner orgasm, that is it's not going to help you reach that space. It's not going to help you get to that orgasm. What will help you get there is heightening pleasure. So that's why I changed the name from orgasm to pleasure, because orgasms are great. We want to have them, right? But going in there with like a, almost like boot camp mentality, or like super goal-oriented mentality of, we're going to do this today, you're going to orgasm, that's not always helpful, and it kind of puts a lot of pressure. It's kind of like, I was kind of thinking of this analogy earlier of if, I played baseball, my family's big in baseball, not big in baseball, but we love it. And it's like, okay, if you're going to hit a home run, okay, you've decided you're going to hit a home run, and you go into the batter's box to hit a home run, but you've never hit a home run before. You haven't practiced the skills, you don't have the stamina, you don't have the body movement down, you're not going to hit a home run. That's just not going to happen, right? But if you, outside of the batter's box, if you work on the skills, if you practice the feeling in your body, of getting to a place where you can hit a home run, then you can, right? Then next time you walk in the batter's box, okay, I have these skills. I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. I know what it tastes like. I know it tastes like victory, I guess. But So that's kind of an analogy that I want to use because, you know, this is a skill, right? You know, an orgasm and sexual experience doesn't need to be like some mysterious thing of, oh, how do we get there? Like, what are the steps? What are the things? It doesn't have to be a mysterious thing. So some things that help are, let's see. So let's start out with, you know, having enough stimulation. It's really important to have enough stimulation. And what I mean by stimulation is like, you know, knowing the parts of in the vaginal area that need to be stimulated and knowing the parts where it might not be as effective. Okay. So I'm sure you have all heard about the clitoris, very sensitive, lots of nerve endings. Looks very cool. I'll have to get into that a little more in depth on a later one, but so you have to have that clitoral stimulation and a lot of, you know, in the foreplay beforehand. So the most sensitive areas, you know, number one is the clitoris, and then the area surrounding. So like the clitoris, the vaginal hood, and then, you know, I really need a diagram, you guys. I'll try to get that next time. And then the areas, so the labia around the vaginal opening. So those are really sensitive areas. One thing that you need to be aware of is the inner 2/3 of the vagina have, for some women, have almost no feeling. Like they've done studies and, you know, touched that area in a woman in like a laboratory setting. And like some women weren't even aware that they were being touched there, right? By, you know, this is laboratory stuff. It's like research. So that's important to be aware of because you have to have adequate stimulation to get to those heightened levels of pleasure. And it has to be done in a way, you know, where your partner is feeling receptive and getting to heightened levels of arousal and pleasure. So let's see. One thing that's really interesting is medical treatment has not really been shown to be effective or successful in reaching orgasm. It's, you know, mainly therapy and then learning skills and getting some additional education. Let's see. So another thing that helps with women getting to a place where they can be orgasmic and have that heightened pleasure is awareness of your body, right? And awareness of how your body responds. So I don't know if y'all can tell where I'm going with this, but I'm talking about, you know, masturbation or, you know, working with a partner that you feel safe with, you know, to see what feels good for me. How does my body respond? And kind of play with that and just improve that awareness. And let's see, another thing is to be aware of is that if you're having, you know, penetrative penis vagina sex, it's like that's not really going to be stimulating the clitoris very much. It's kind of like in a secondary way stimulates it. But you can have the woman ride higher, and that does provide more stimulation. For some women, that works out better to help them become more orgasmic. Let's see. And so I say a lot about getting in a space of being orgasmic, right? And what that means for a woman and for their partner is getting to a place where you can kind of let go during sex, let go and just be present and aware with the pleasurable sensations that you're having, you know, and it's about letting those anxiety provoking thoughts, you know, letting those go. Like, because sometimes we do have thoughts about, you know, about being naked, about sweat or odor or facial expressions or stuff like that, but that's okay. We can have those thoughts. It's just, you know, let them go. So that's good. Let's see. So you guys, I posted, just so y'all know, make sure to answer the little questionnaire that I put on here. I think it's on here. Julie, is it on here? Just about what I can, you know, what y'all want me to talk about next week. And if, you know, if there are other things I didn't put on there, you can just like leave them in the comment area. So let's see. Another thing that I was kind of wanting to address is, one thing real quick that's important when we're talking about getting sufficient stimulation. It's going to vary what you prefer from sexual experience to sexual experience. You'll find that there are things that you generally like, but sometimes it depends on, where you are in your cycle in the month. Like maybe while you're ovulating, you prefer something different because your hormones are different. And it's also important to be aware of, for women, when you're going through your sexual response cycle. I can talk about that more in another live, but as you're going through that cycle, the preference for how you like to be touched can change, and it often does. Sometimes when you get to higher levels of arousal, direct clitoral stimulation can be too much. It can be a little bit overwhelming and kind of make it just too much to handle, to a point where it's not pleasurable. Let's see. Making sure that I'm covering everything I wanted to. I also want to just make a note of how men and women experience sex. I'll do this real quick. So I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this, but most women actually don't even insert a finger or use like a dildo or vibrator during sex. I'm not during sex, during masturbation. So most women do stimulate the outer part of their vaginal area, and they find that that's a way to reach that higher level of pleasure or orgasm. And let's see. So something that I was asked last week that I thought was such a great question is, for men, or for, anyone that has a woman as a partner, like how likely is she to fake it? Okay. How likely is she to fake it? Fake the orgasm. And I guess how would you know? So my first kind of thought on that is, we could go over those numbers. We can look at those numbers. It's usually, more than 50% of women have faked an orgasm at some point in their life. But I don't think it's so helpful to know how likely they are, but it's more helpful to have that conversation with your partner, and even ask yourself before you have that conversation, what does it mean for me if my partner can't orgasm? What does it mean for me, as a person, as a sexual human being, if I can't be with someone who's orgasming? Because it has an impact on us, right? We want to, I think it's great. Like, you want to make sure that your partner is having a pleasurable experience. And a lot of times the best way for us to measure that is if you're orgasming or not. But we've kind of already talked about that. That's not a great way. That's not a great goal or a helpful goal, or necessarily a way to, to get to orgasm. So some of the things that, so you can, the biggest thing for this is starting that conversation with yourself and with your partner. So there are certain things that make a woman kind of more likely to fake it. And one of those things is she's afraid of hurting your feelings. She's aware that in our society, or not, it's just in our society, but she knows you well. She knows that you want her to orgasm, and she wants you to feel good about sex, right? So that's something, that women can fake it. Sometimes they'll, if you ask her over and over and over again, did you orgasm? Have you orgasmed? Are you getting close? Is it, if you're kind of asking that over and over again, at some point she's probably like, yes, I did. Okay, geez. So if you're doing that, like, make a note, just notice if you're doing it or not. And if you are, kind of take a step back and let her have her experience. Also, no foreplay. If there's no foreplay, she's probably more likely to fake an orgasm because it's going to be more difficult for her to get there. And then recovery time. So typically after, kind of like in men, like typically in women, after you have an orgasm, you're going to have a higher sensitivity in your vaginal area. And so that, that's something that you would notice after an orgasm. Another thing that means she's probably likely not having an orgasm and potentially faking it is if you're not noticing like the muscle spasms, so the contractions in the vaginal wall. It would feel like little pulses. And another thing is if she's orgasmed and it seems like that was really different and sounded different and her body was different and she looked kind of different than she normally does, then that might be, a different kind of orgasm that she's having, or it could be that she didn't really have one. So this is about conversation, right? And when I say conversation, I don't mean go to your partner and be like, hey, did you orgasm? Like, but did you really orgasm? Did you? No. So what I mean is, hey, so have you ever faked an orgasm before? Or are there any reasons that you would ever consider faking an orgasm? So kind of role play, like role play it a little bit. Like, so if you were wanting to fake an orgasm, what would you do? Right? These don't need to be like serious talks, okay? You can role play and be like, all right, like let's practice, let's fake orgasms together, so that you can start having that conversation. Let's see how am I on time? Okay, so I have a few minutes left. Let's see. Is there anything I didn't touch on that y'all have any questions about? Let's see. Let's see. So at this time, I'm going to just do, I'm going to, I guess, keep talking, but if y'all have any questions or want me to explain something in a little bit more depth, I can try to do that. I want this to be as simple as possible for y'all, so that you can have those heightened levels of pleasure and arousal and, get to a place where, you're having the sex life that you want. And a lot of these things start with conversations and start with discussing the topic of sex. Because, as a society, like, we're just not given an opportunity or skill set to have, a mature conversation about sexual issues, especially with the opposite sex. So I'm hoping that this is going to kind of help with that, so we can at least start having these conversations. Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking at these comments. Can be numb on the inside, so outside is very important. Yes, very important. I just can't stress that enough. And another thing I wanted to make really clear is that this is something, like we talked about last week with female arousal and desire. This is something that's pretty common. So let's look at this. So about 27% of American women age 18 to 59 and 40% age 60 to 75 were unable to achieve orgasm for at least several months in the past year. And this is a study that's been done more than once. This is done in 1999 and 2009, and there are a bunch of studies, 2008. There are a bunch of studies that have kind of confirmed this information. It's stayed pretty steady. So it's important to be aware that this is pretty common, and it's also something that tends to increase as you age. And like my alarm just went off, guys. Trying to think. It's also important to know that if you don't have personal distress attached to not having an orgasm, that's okay. Like, you don't need to be upset if you're not having an orgasm. If it feels good and you're happy about your experience and you're bonding and you're like loving your partner, that's okay. It is okay. And you can just do different. There are different things that you can do to work on that. But my time is up, y'all. I'm sorry. So please make sure. I think I have. Um, I should have done. Let's see. There should have been an area where you can like vote on what you want to hear about next week, or if you want me to get in more specific detail about certain things. I really want to make sure that I'm talking about things that are going to be helpful for you. Because if I'm up here just, talking about things that I think are important and that I'm excited about, I might be missing something or not touching on something that's super important to you. So I'm going to make sure to do that. And there's some comments here that I'm going to add to my list for sure. So thank you so much for being here. Hi, Holly. Hi, Julie. Um, Hello, everyone. I'm really, really glad that y'all kind of tuned in and, listened to this today. This is really important stuff. Sex is a huge, huge part of relationships, and it's really important to have that education and awareness to increase the satisfaction with your relationship. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the live video. Bye, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.